I was looking at him when his eye came out. It popped from the socket, driven by a sudden torrent of pus from his skull. He reached up to grasp at his hair, which was suddenly moss that tore easily from his bleeding scalp. As the pus from his eye thickened into sap, I turned from my gargling brother and walked to the pool of the hollow, where I drowned out my brother's cries. And it was here that I first encountered the temper woe. A gaunt bride, half the height of a natural woman. She spoke to me directly from her eyes and said, "This is your doing. You suffered his wantonness. Now he's no one's brother. Only chaos's whore." The end.
Hello, decorated Lumen employees. If you're wondering why I'm dressed like a scrub, a homeless scrub, well, it's because I was filming for my reaction video. I usually like to do those live, but I end up editing them at some point, and I like to include the chat as well and some of the theories I see on there. Anyways, this video is being made after Severance Season 2, Episode 4 released, and oh boy, was it a good one. We got a lot of revelations, but we also got a lot of questions. As seems to be the case with almost every episode, I'm realizing. One of the big reveals we got was that Helly was actually Helena. Big surprise.
Helly! Oh my god, are you okay?
I'm okay.
That's not her.
Yeah.
Nope. I don't think that's her.
Did you guys look happy?
Right, of course. I mean, assuming she's still here.
That's not her. I just want to say props to Britt. She definitely had some moments where she perfectly played like Helena trying to pretend to be Helly. You can tell in some of the tonal shifts she would have in her voice.
Made you a snow seal. In case you were hungry. It's okay. We all know Irving's upset because he can't ever see Bert again.
And that's just, I imagine, very hard to do. To be able to convey that sort of character, props, major props. But we can't argue there weren't also some narrative hints that were there already to begin with. From the elevator ding to Helly's aggression, to laughing at the oddly dark story belonging to Kier as a whole. She must have heard that story thousands of times and probably at some point found it very funny to hear again. Especially seeing the innies react to it in such a serious way and everybody take it so seriously.
The handbook enriches our work with tales of the founder's life. Every word is truth.
So, to continue with my theory, we see at the beginning of the season, Helena seems very interested in art, seemingly so. She watches that videotape over and over and over again and seems to have an emotional response to it. Otherwise, she seems very robotic. That seems to be the obvious catalyst for her willing to go in as Helly in the first place. But still, a lot of questions surround this, like did Lumen know? And if they did know, were they the ones who sent her in? If they did send her in, and this was all part of her plan, surely they would know about her constant persistence with art. What would they have to say about Helena getting so involved with one of the seven? Unless that was their intention. What if Lumen had sent Helly in there specifically to seduce Mark, in the hopes of Helena getting pregnant with Mark's child? It's a wild conclusion, I know. I used to feel the same when I would see some comments at the beginning of the season say such things when the whole Helly-Helena debacle started. However, I feel this video finally adds a little bit of merit. See, there's already been theories surrounding Severance and some sort of lineage going on in regards to the Egans as a whole. Not the fact that they exist, but saying that there seems to be a common theme in regards to Kier and his lineage as a whole.
They'll all be Kier's children.
Making everyone in the world one of Kier's children. I also saw that Kier has some form of incestuous presence in his family history. Now, in this segment, we get to take a look at the fourth appendix of Kier.
Kier dictated a fourth appendix in his final hours of life, a text of such sanctity that it is forbidden upon the severed floor.
And while we didn't get to finish the story of this appendix, I assume it would have explained the cooked seal and what was going on with that as a whole, we did get to hear more about Kier's backstory. Now, I originally bought this scene as Kier seemingly taking his brother out to the woods to take him out. Maybe because he was jealous of him. I feel like that makes sense considering they said it was for his long lost brother. But during my live stream, I had a user named Pam Jam come out and say that potentially theater could be fictitious and maybe could just be a metaphor in some way. Essentially, the theory comes down to the idea that Kier had a side of himself that he felt like he needed to tame. Maybe there was certain aspects. We know that the brother in the story was very much a fan of music. Music could represent one of the four tempers named Frolic. Is it possible his brother could have represented in some way, shape, or form a connection to all four tempers? If that was the case, what if it wasn't his brother and it was actually parts of himself he was looking to get rid of? We already know that Kier knew of a severe form of punishment, just in regards to the break room. What if, at some point, Kier came to a personal existential crossroads and decided to cut off a piece of himself that he didn't want to deal with anymore. And in doing so, he found he was much more efficient, could work a lot longer, and the lazy apathetic side of him ceased to exist, almost severing his personalities as a whole. So what if him killing his brother, or his brother dying as a whole, was actually his four tempers finally being tamed, so he could really focus on the pharmaceutical business and growing what is now known as Lumen. I also find it very interesting that the cave he went to do all of this are now called Scissor Cave. Severing, anybody? Now, stick with me, Mudbeards. That's right, that's your guys' name now. Because we're about to get pretty darn tinfoil. If Kier does have some form of incestuous history with his family, and Lumen and or at the very least Helena's goal was to get pregnant by Mark, could the common theory out there that Mark is a secret Deacon relate to an incestuous child of some way, shape, or form? Originally, when I first heard that theory, I thought maybe Kier was born out of an incestuous relationship, so they were trying to recreate that magic. But with this theory, and the events that took place in Woes Hollow, when Kier was taming the four tempers, was he also getting rid of the chance of ever marrying a relative that was close to him? See, in the fourth appendix, we see a part of the passage, Kier was confronted by the bride representing Woe.
And it was here that I first encountered the temper Woe.
We don't know what the other three tempers represent just yet, but it confused me that a bride of all things would represent Woe, and I think the bride, for Kier at least, could have been a metaphor for a future version of that close family relative he was saying goodbye to in Woes Hollow. He also severed the part of himself that would ever live up to the potential of marrying that family relative. So I mean, I guess he made the right choice in the end. Plus, Lumen's probably helped tons of people. Maybe Kier was a good guy. If it's Owen Wilson playing him, he has to be. And as a small little bonus theory, if Innie Mark and Outie Mark end up confronting each other in a heads-to-heads battle, could this same story be foreshadowing for one of the two having to tame the other, one taking full control finally because reintegration just isn't working? And if that's the case, could the bride in this metaphor represent either Helly or Gemma? Was definitely a very good episode. I have a lot of theories that I'm going to be trying to break down, but this is just the first thing that came to mind, and I just have to get the video out there as soon as possible. So I'll be getting this out there whenever I can. Otherwise, shout out to Pam Jam. Thanks for joining the stream and watching along, and I also appreciate your ideas and theories that you kept putting out there. If anyone else feels like joining along, feel free to as well. I'm still trying to figure out a good format for doing these streams, so I'm also open to suggestions. But otherwise, I do edits of these streams as well. So again, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate all the support on the road to 500. And I got some Invincible reactions coming out here soon. But otherwise, let's go ahead and keep breaking down Severance as often as possible. It's getting real good. My next theory video, I'm thinking is going to be on the export haul. I think we got a lot of clues as to what that is, just in this episode. Anyways, thanks Mudbeards. Have a good rest of your day.